Hey, what's up, everybody? It's July 1st, 2021, a day that you will remember for a long time if you are a college athletics fan. This is a line of demarcation. There will be a before and an after when you think about college athletics when it comes to July 1st, 2021. Why is that, T-Bob? Because today is NIL Day. That's right. Name, image, and likeness. Finally, officially today, 26 states have passed laws that, combined with the NCAA allowing it, finally allows players to benefit off their name, their image, and their likeness. Wow. Players having the ability to get paid? I mean, that's like a major change for college athletics, right? Like, okay, surely the NCAA is on top of this and there's rules and guidelines in place. That's maybe the craziest part about all of this. It is the Wild West out there right now. We'll get to the NCAA and what role it plays a bit later in the video, where we expect to go. Just know this. Right now, the rules around all of this are decided by state laws and then the school policies themselves. So if you just think about it, there's a lot of room to rise and fall within that space, right? Wild West, like I say, what do they say in Game of Thrones? Chaos is a ladder. Who's going to climb that ladder? If you're watching this video, there's a good chance you're an LSU fan. And you should know that the Tigers at least appear to be at the forefront of this ladder climb. If you have followed LSU's social media at all in the past couple of days, they have an entire campaign originating out of Times Square in New York City, where they have tagged the line NILSU. What's the deal? I think this is important to highlight because when you talk about college football and you talk about college athletics, what is the lifeblood? What is the key to winning? It's recruiting. And the impact into how your school handles name, image, and likeness could be monumental when it comes to landing the biggest recruits. So again, if you want to separate yourself from the pack, you want to make your school more attractive, you have to sell these recruits on the idea that you're being proactive, forward-thinking, and that if you go to school here, we are going to help you make as much money as possible off of your name. I believe that LSU is doing just that. Now, it's obviously not without drawbacks, right? I mean, certainly one of the key topics that keeps popping up is, are these schools providing financial education? Are these schools providing resources to making sure that these players are maximizing their value and not just taking the first deal? Another common criticism or idea about NIL that I constantly hear is, well, okay, sure, this is going to help the few, but not the many, right? Like just a few of the biggest names, the biggest sports, is only going to help the football and basketball players. Nothing could be further than the truth, in my opinion, for a couple of reasons. First off, social media rules all, okay? I don't care what sport you play. I don't care where you play it. If you have a massive following, just like your regular classmate who you have, like, I don't know, biology with, you can now monetize that following. Perfect example right here in Baton Rouge. LSU gymnast Olivia Dunn. 1 million followers on Instagram, 3 million followers on TikTok. Before this, she could not get paid for that. We talked to a person who manages a marketing agency today that says she could be making close to $1 million a year off of that sort of following. She's not LSU's best gymnast. She's not the best gymnast in the country. She's not going to the Olympics or anything, but she has that profile that she can finally now benefit off of. Another great example, Fresno State basketball twins, Haley and Hannah Cavender. You've probably never heard of them. Guess what? They signed a deal at midnight last night worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so those are some of the big names of the following, but it's not just that. When you think about college sports, think about how hyper-localized they can be, okay? And then understand there's a lot of small businesses in these college towns that would love to advertise with some of their favorite players. And maybe it is like a starting O-lineman or for instance, LSU beach volleyball, Taryn Cloth and Kristen Nuss, the best beach volleyball pair in the entire country. You're telling me a local Baton Rouge business wouldn't want to advertise with them? Especially if you're trying to do something like the radio stuff, you're talking about thousands of dollars. What if it's just a couple hundred, a couple thousand? So I think that this will have way more of a trickle-down effect than a lot of people are saying. Sure, the biggest names, they're going to see the big dollars, like closing in, 6 figures, 7 figures. But we've all been in college. Would you have not loved an extra 500, 300, 200? I would have done it for beer money. So I think this is going to benefit a ton of people and a ton of different sports, top to bottom. Another criticism that people often bring up, they're like, T-Bob, well, what's the potential for corruption here, right? There's no NCAA rules, there's no federal guidelines or kind of barriers on this thing. And you're right, I think the potential is huge. But corruption is always going to exist. And kind of by its definition, it's going to exist on the edges, okay? And so while there still will be cases where somebody steps out of line or something bad is done, the fact of the matter is now you will have hundreds, if not thousands of kids to be able to legally provide for their families while they are athletically relevant. I can't help but think of those NCAA commercials. We're like, 98% of athletes will go pro in something other than sports. Then allow them to provide for their family while they're still relevant in sports. And so that's okay now. And so you're no longer going to have Todd Gurley have a Heisman season derailed where he's playing incredible because he sold a jersey for $3,000. Like, how stupid does that feel now when we look at it just from an economic standpoint? So will corruption exist? Absolutely. But in this new NIL setting, I believe it to be the lesser of two evils. You're allowing these kids to provide even if they don't end up being a professional athlete. And so I guess the last kind of point that we've been dancing around here is, where is the NCAA in all of this? And it's a really good question. Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, just signed an extension. Like, well, how's that possible? I mean, during COVID, they did nothing. They took the vaccine and all these other things. And you're not wrong. The lack of leadership from the NCAA, the lack of pro-action from the NCAA during the pandemic was astounding, quite frankly. But you know what the NCAA kept doing? It kept making money. So as long as that happens, the power structure is going to stay in place. It feels absolutely wild to me that the NCAA could feel like it caught so flat-footed in this, not having any overarching rules, when we've knowing that this has been coming for months and months and months, if not years, and yet here we are. Now, some will tell you that the flat-footedness is actually by design, right? They've been trying to get a federal bill passed with all this for the last 18 months to no avail. There's a theory out there that they want the chaos because through the chaos, they can have a stronger argument for reform. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's the NCAA just trying to shirk responsibility and avoid any criticism coming down on them when some of the chaotic elements do develop. And like, well, hey, man, we didn't make the rules, right? We tried and we couldn't. It remains to be seen over time. I think the big takeaway is less, where is the NCAA now? Because eventually they will get involved and eventually federal rules will develop. To me, the biggest takeaway now is what happens in the short term. And how long does the NCAA stay out of it? That's another question as well. I think shorter. We talk to somebody else who's an expert, they think a bit longer. But what happens in the interim? Because that, in my mind, is where the big gains will be made. Already in college football and in a lot of sports, you have the haves and have-nots. It is my opinion that you are going to see that exacerbate, right? If you are a school that funnels millions upon millions of dollars into your football program and resources into your programs, well, then I believe you are better equipped in a school that is less financially committed to take advantage of these deals, to attract recruits, to help make these players money and then prove to them this is the place where you want to be to continue your career and maximize your profit. So I would not be shocked at all if you have the LSU, the Alabamas, the Ohio State, the Clemsons of the world separate themselves even further from the pack. The main takeaway of this video is that finally players are able to be fairly compensated for the work that they put in, right? They are the labor and they finally get a piece of the pie. And no matter how you slice it, that represents a massive sea change in NCAA athletics. What do you think? Will the power consolidate? Well, if you rise while others fall, will it democratize? Let us know below. Are you a fan of the move or are you not? And we'll see you next time. Hey, hit the subscribe button and the like button.